Welcome back. We're starting a completely new topic today, which is a new data structure called the tree. And this slide will introduce you to what a tree is. In this lesson, you'll learn the difference between linear and nonlinear data structures. You'll see how to fit nodes together to make a tree, how to draw a tree in a way that makes the rest of your work easy to do, and you'll learn the right technical terms that will be used in the exam. Very briefly, a linear data structure is one where the data items are in a particular order or sequence, and every item is in between two other items, exactly one in front and exactly one behind, unless you're at the very end or front. And we've seen the stack, the queue, and the linked list. These are linear data structures. In a linked list, each node is made of two parts, some data and a pointer. By using the pointers, we can go through the linked list from node to node. Each node tells you where the next node is. And this is obviously a linear sequence. It forms a line. Now, nonlinear data structures are our next topic. Nonlinear data structures are still made of nodes, but the nodes can have more than one pointer, so you can have more complicated structures, and each node can join up to multiple other nodes. So a tree node is like that. A tree is made of nodes that have a bit of data, but they can have more than one pointer. In this example, the node has got two pointers, which we're calling the left and the right pointer. Now we can join those nodes together with the pointers and make a different sort of shape, looking a bit like this. So each node points to two other nodes, and those nodes also point to two other nodes, and so the shape grows out like this. Now, let's not be confused here. Where I've drawn an arrow, there aren't really arrows, there aren't even electronic links. All there are numbers. So where I've written left pointer and right pointer, those are simply integers. They are the addresses of other nodes in the computer's memory. Remember, every location in computer's memory is identified by a number, so all we're showing there is that the number of one location is stored in another location. But by convention, we draw that as an arrow to show that you can get from one to the other. The other thing, and I might be stating the obvious here, but obviously they need, if you looked inside the computer's memory, they need not be organized in this shape. This is an abstraction. It helps us to understand how the data is connected together, and setting it out like this makes it easy for us to understand it. In real life, they could be organized in any shape inside the computer. We're visualizing it, so that's a key term that we need to know for the exam. We're visualizing what's going on inside the computer using an abstraction. So the example tree that I showed you on the previous page, on the previous slide, is what we call a binary tree. In a binary tree, the nodes have no more than two pointers. That means that the structure of the tree is very regular and predictable, and it grows by two each time. The size of the number of nodes doubles at each level. There are other types of tree where the nodes can have more than two pointers, and those aren't as regular, but you might see them in the exam, so do be aware it's only a binary tree if you have two or fewer pointers in each node. We draw a binary tree like this down the page. This one has got I've used letters to stand for the data. Try to make all the lines the same length and all the nodes the same size, and as far as possible use the same angles, And if you do that, it will set itself out in a more regular form, and it'll be easier for you to understand what's going on. Every node, of course, has data, and I'll tend to use letters or numbers to stand for that data. And all the parts of a binary tree have got names. You can use these names with non-binary trees as well. So the first node from which all the rest spring is called the root node. You can see it's kind of like an upside down tree because the root's at the top. That's just how we do it. A node which has other nodes coming from it is called a parent node. So G is the parent of I in this example. How many nodes in this tree are parents? See if you can pause and write down the answer. I'll tell you in a second. The answer is 6 of the nodes are parents. And a node which depends or comes from another node is called a child node. So how many of these nodes are child nodes? Pause, write down, restart, and I'll tell you. The answer is 8 nodes are child nodes. In fact, it's always the number of nodes in the tree minus 1, because the only node in a tree which is not a child node is the root. And finally, mixing metaphors a bit here, if a node has no children, we call that a leaf node. It's like the leaf of the tree, the end of a branch of the tree. And so we've got a bit mixed metaphors, as I say. We talk about the root and the leaf, and we also talk about branches of the tree. But within the tree, we talk about parent and child nodes. It's all pretty straightforward and logical, I think. Oh, incidentally, the links between nodes are also called edges. And a quick way to find out the number of edges in a tree, it's the number of nodes minus 1. So I've just set out the rules about naming there. Those points are ones that I've already mentioned. I'm not going to read them out, but you can come back and read this if you need to revise. A slightly more complicated idea about trees that doesn't come up very often in the exam but is worth knowing is that the tree is a recursive structure. What on earth do I mean by that? Well, each part of the tree is itself a little tree. So we can define a tree as a root, a binary tree at least, as a root with a left and right tree growing out of the root. And each of those left and right trees are themselves made of little trees. That'll come in handy when we're doing some object-oriented coding later. When we talk about the height of a tree, we're talking about the height of the root node. So what's the maximum number of jumps from the root node to the furthest item in the tree? Notice that that is always quite a lot smaller than the number of nodes. Okay, so that's tree structures. Why? Why are we going to bother with these? Why not just stick with linked lists? You can see my answers, and these are the best reasons, in my opinion. Just some data naturally goes into a tree structure. For instance, if you were storing data about species in biology, they naturally form a tree, or a folder structure system, and there are literally millions of others. So some data just naturally goes into a tree. Another reason, even with data that doesn't naturally fall into that shape, storing data in a tree means it's fewer links and therefore fewer operations to get to a particular item of data that we need. So in a linked list, the number of jumps to get to an item, particularly one later in the list, is the same as n. But in a tree, it's much less than n. We'll learn more about that in the future. Okay, so there's a very simple tree test one, which you can take online. I'll send you a link, and when they're in, we'll continue with the next lesson.